Edson Barboza looked fantastic at UFC 262, getting a TKO victory over Shane Burgos in one of the wildest knockouts we've ever seen, where Burgos got hit and seemingly took a few seconds before the light fully went off. But just, I mean, everything about Barboza's performance was just spot on, looked incredible. And especially after, having a little bit of a rough go with those split decision losses at lightweight and then at featherweight to Dan Ige, which a lot of people had Barboza winning that fight. I did. I know it's a little contentious, but most people had Barboza winning that split decision loss. It's good to see him get back on that track, build some momentum after beating Makwan Amirkhani, and then now adding to it a very dangerous Shane Burgos. Now Barboza has made the rounds, so to speak, and is talking about, that he wants to put on fun fights. He knows what the fans want to see. It's going to be wars. He's talked about the top five. He's talked about fights with Calvin Kattar, Max Holloway, Zabit, Yair, everybody you could think of that would just be a striker's dream. There are so many fun matchups for him, and we will each pick one person we think we'd like to see him go against next. But a more important question is, Drake Riggs, how far can Edson Barboza go in this division? We saw him struggle against Habib and against Kevin Lee and wrestlers at lightweight. That was part of his decision to move down. We don't see as much of that at featherweight right now. So what do you think, Drake? How far can Barboza go?
Man, I still can't believe that he can make the featherweight cut, because he's just, he's so ripped, and he was massive at lightweight. It's very impressive that he's doing just fine here at featherweight. Yeah, man, I think that this division and how we're seeing Edson Barboza look now he's got the best chance to finally, which is odd to say, finally, maybe fighting for a title. I think that potential is there, despite, the very full career that he has already had, looking sensational. As you mentioned, that Shane Burgos fight, just, beautiful work from him. When he's on, there's nothing really like it. He's just so fun to watch, throws the purest of techniques, always fast, hits very hard, obviously. Shuts people down now, shutting Burgos down. But I like what you said there about not having as much trouble with maybe wrestlers, at least from what we've seen so far, and specifically highlighting that Makwan Amirkhani fight, where very improved takedown defense from Barboza. To play devil's advocate, I do think that Makwan didn't really mix it up all that well, but still, pressure in the past has been the kryptonite of Edson Barboza, and I don't think we're fully out of the woods to say that it isn't still that. But if we're going to go off that fight, we've seen the improvements in his takedown defense, which is very good to see and very, very important as he looks to climb the ladder at featherweight. So with all that in mind, sitting at number 9 right now, how far can he go? As I said, I think that he could very well get to a title shot. I don't see Edson Barboza being a champion, though, specifically because of that problem he has had with pressure in the past against wrestlers. So if we're going to look at the lineup here with everybody above him, the one that stands out to me, there's really only one outside of the top 3 guys, because at the top, obviously, you got Volkanovski, Holloway, Ortega, who all very problematic matchups for their own reasons. Volkanovski, the well-roundedness, I think, could apply that pressure. As I mentioned, don't think Barboza beats him from what we've seen yet. Maybe he can continue to improve in that area. Ortega, obviously, a submission threat, and has improved his striking as well. So you could see him, snatching up a submission, Darce or something crazy, grab a neck, as we've seen on Barboza in the past. And then Holloway is just kind of his own kind of freak on the feet, and that pace, I think, that'd be very, very interesting to see. I would love to see that. So those top 3 guys, no matter who it's against, whoever's holding the title, by the time Barboza gets there, as I think he probably will, I don't see him beating them really. But I can see him, and then the matchups directly above him outside of those 3 guys, in terms of wrestlers, Josh Emmett is a guy who I think that's a bad matchup, one that he wants to avoid to get to the title, as of course he hopes to. But outside of him, maybe Arnold Allen too, who's still, I think deserves a lot more appreciation than he gets, despite being 7 now in this incredible winning streak. That might be another guy who would be a very interesting, maybe problematic matchup. But outside of that, though, all the other guys, primarily strikers, as you said, Yair, Korean Zombie, Calvin Kattar, even Dan Ige. Zabit isn't ranked anymore, but that's a guy who would fight in that area, I think, at least until he got hurt. I think Barboza could definitely beat all those strikers that are outside of the top 3 for sure. And he could very well beat the Emmets and the Allens, as I mentioned as well. But I just think those are the tougher ones out of the road directly ahead of him. So for me, man, I really think Barboza is looking, better than ever. He could very well work his way to that top 3. And I wouldn't at all be surprised if he gets a title fight. It just kind of depends, I think, on what his path from here looks like. And if he does run into, let's say, an Emmett or maybe an Allen, but I feel much worse about the Emmett matchup.
Yeah, no, I mean, it sucks to say this because Barboza is so fun to watch and just, incredible striker. And still, as you mentioned, the fact he's able to cut down to 145 is nuts, because he recently said he's still walking in the cage at 170, which is what he did at lightweight. So, I mean, hats off to him for being able to do that. But I think he is going to be relegated in terms of how far he can go. I think he's still going to be exactly where he got to in lightweight, where he's going to be that, top contender gatekeeper. I can see him beating most of the guys you mentioned. I can even see him beating Ortega, just because Ortega, right? Yeah. A lot of people forget Ortega had a lot of close wins where he was getting beat up by.
They were comebacks. They were Hail Marys a little bit.
Yeah, they were. Exactly. So I think he could beat Ortega even. I think he can beat Emmett on the right night, even though that is kind of a bad matchup for him. But I agree. I would favor Emmett there, but I think he can beat him. I think he could beat Allen. Same. I mean, if you look, an interesting stat about Barboza since he's moved down to featherweight is in every one of his fights at featherweight, even against Ige, who he lost against, he's scored at least one knockdown. His power seems to translate and seems to really hurt guys that are smaller than the, he had knockdowns and knockouts at lightweight too, but they were rarer. Whereas here, every single fight he's scored at least one knockdown. That helps him a lot. I think where he runs into trouble, though, is specifically against Volkanovski, who's got that well-roundedness and can go for takedowns, right? We saw against Aldo, he mixed it up plenty. I think he can do that against Barboza. And then Max Holloway, I think, is that pressure and that Holloway's chin. I think that's just a bad time for Barboza, because
that'd be so fun, though.
Oh, it'd be incredible. I want to see that fight so bad. Don't get me wrong. I would love to see that fight. But if you look at the Ige fight, right, Barboza lands the knockdown, hurts Ige, can't finish him, and then Ige is able to withstand some more of Barboza's, shots and pressure him a little bit more. And that's where you get, again, I still think it was a clear win for Barboza, but it was enough controversy where Ige did enough that, the judges sided with him. And I think with Holloway, you're going to see that times 10, where Holloway's not going to get knocked down. Holloway, I think, has yet to be knocked down. Yeah. He's been rocked, but I think, actually knocked down. And he's going to keep just nonstop pressure. He's going to, do what he does. He starts out a little bit slow, and then as rounds go on, just keeps piling it on, just throws and throws and throws. And I can't see Barboza getting out of that, because I can't see anyone getting out of that, but especially Barboza, who we know has had trouble with pressure before. So I think, unfortunately, the highest he goes is probably somewhere in the 3 to 5 ranked range. I can easily see him beating Korean Zombie, Yair, Zabit, if Zabit came back and was in that, kind of situation. Calvin Kattar is a fight I would love to see. There's so many good matchups for him, but I think that's where he's stuck. So speaking of matchups for him, let's go ahead and talk very quickly. Who do you want to see him fight next? Because obviously you'd assume he fights up, right?
Yeah, you definitely would. I mean, yeah, when you just let's look at who's directly behind him. Giga Chikadze would be the only one. I think that which
Yeah.
would be pretty sweet. But outside of him, you got Sadiq right there, Bryce Mitchell, Burgos, who he beat, Movsar Evloev, who that'd be too much, and then Hakeem Dawodu. So I think if you're gonna go backwards, it's got to be the guy who's right, fresh on your heels there, which would be another awesome matchup. But when you look at the performance that he just put on, and then the one before that, it's the momentum he's built. I think he deserves to go upward. And for somebody like Chikadze, just for him, that puts him in a weird spot though, because he should probably get somebody, who's above him as well. And Ige is already matched with Zombie. Maybe wait to see how that one plays out. If you want to launch Chikadze to Emmett, I don't know about that. Like, very interesting when it comes to these two guys in the 9 and 10 spot. But I do think Barboza has earned it a little bit more than, yes, beating Cub Swanson is always a big thing. And Cub Swanson still, I don't think he's done yet necessarily either, but obviously he's at the back end of his career. So if you're going to look at what the guys just did more recently, I think Barboza has earned to fight up rather than give it to the new guy on the block, kind of. So for Barboza next, did mention Allen. That's a rough one. I don't know. I think it kind of really depends on availability, because this featherweight division is kind of weird when it comes to that, right? Zabit out of the picture. He's still undergoing that surgery, right? And might not even come back. So I don't even think we think about him until we have more updates with that. So keep him out of the picture as he already is anyway. So with that in mind, Allen would be the guy for me, but I do like the idea of Yair Rodriguez, depending on what's going on with him, because he's a guy who's been gone as well. So if he's ready and able to fight again, that is the fight to make. If either of that, whoever wins that fight, it puts them right in that spot to, I mean, they'd be next in line, right? Unless I'm completely forgetting somebody.
Yeah, I mean, you got Holloway, right? That's the only. What do you do with Holloway? Because
Right.
he's sitting right there.
You
But
could get
yeah,
crazy and go with Holloway.
you could. No, but I mean, I'm with you where I love the idea of Yair Rodriguez versus Barboza. If Yair is coming back and is going to have a fight, that one just beautiful. Just, it should be incredible. So that would be my preferred pick if he's available. If he's not, then I might get a little bit of hate for this, and I understand that, but I think
Nate Diaz.
No, not Nate Diaz. Although at featherweight, man, that'd be something. Is Calvin Kattar, right? I like Calvin Kattar a lot. It's the big thing is a lot of people want him to take more time off, get maybe an easier fight after that just beat down by Holloway, which I understand, but that stylistically makes sense. And Kattar is in that spot where it's a nice jump for Barboza. So I think Barboza versus Kattar just makes all the sense in the world. And it would help Barboza get that potential title shot. So that's my pick for Barboza versus Kattar if Yair is not available. If Yair is available, you got to do Rodriguez versus Barboza.
Yeah, and that's kind of why I didn't mention Kattar, is because just kind of, that was a bad loss, right? And it seems kind of like you never want to give a guy an easy fight, especially when they're that high up, but an easier fight than this streaky and red hot, Barboza. So I feel like it wouldn't be necessarily the nicest thing to him, but of course he's a guy who will absolutely accept that. And, if he was to win, it puts him in a great spot as well. But it just, in terms of the overall picture, I don't think it cleans it up as much as that Yair Barboza one would. And, I should mention this before people in the comments do get mad at me about not saying, Holloway being next or anything. That's the thing, right? It depends on how this title fight plays out. We still have so much time to see, because if Volkanovski beats Ortega, which totally possible, maybe likely, who knows? Depends on how you feel about it. Holloway's not going to get the title shot, right? So if that happens, I'd say let's get nuts. Let's do Barboza Holloway next. But if Ortega wins, for a goddamn fact, Holloway's getting that rematch as soon as possible. So it really depends on how a lot of what the best option available is right here, whether it's Yair and being available, Zabit being available, what happens with the title fight. Like, there's still a lot of moving parts just in the top of this division, which is frustrating, but also exciting, depending. But that makes it a lot harder and more fun to speculate, I guess. So I wouldn't be mad at the Kattar one for sure, but yes, it's hard to go wrong. But I think the ones that we best avoid are Josh Emmett for Barboza, even though it's interesting what you do with him too, because he's in a good spot coming off. He beat Shane Burgos in his last fight, and you could very well match him with Rodriguez as well. There's a lot of different directions to go, Pat. It's exhausting.
Yeah, featherweight is stacked. There's no way around it. Featherweight has sneakily become one of the more stacked divisions in the UFC, and this is all these matchups are great. I'd be about seeing any of these fights. So it's just a matter of matching up the right people. But let us know in the comments how you think Barboza will do in this division. Do you think he will get a title shot? Do you think he'll be champion? Do you think he won't get that far? That yes, he beat Burgos, but this is kind of it. He's going to be down in the 9th, 10th ranked. Let us know your thoughts, who you'd like to see him fight next. Make sure to hit the like button, subscribe, bell notification. And yeah, just give me Barboza versus anybody above him, and I'm probably going to be happy, especially Allen, Emmett. Yeah, but you know what? I'm sure Barboza will make it fun to watch. So
of course,
just give me another Barboza fight. That's it. That's what I want.